What if the one who pulls away from you is actually the one who loves you the most but fears it the deepest? Love stories are often told through grand gestures, poetry, and promises whispered under moonlit skies. But some love stories are written in silence, in pauses between words, in the distance someone keeps even when their heart is running toward you. I once knew a love like that. They weren't the kind who said, "I miss you," first. They didn't flood my phone with messages or hold my hand in crowded places. In fact, sometimes it felt like they were miles away even when sitting right beside me. I thought maybe they didn't care. Maybe their quiet meant emptiness. Maybe their distance meant goodbye. But love has many languages, and avoidant hearts speak one of the quietest. You see, people with avoidant attachment don't run from love because they don't feel it. They run because they feel it too deeply. Love, for them, is not just warmth, it's vulnerability, exposure, the terrifying possibility of being hurt. So they build walls, not to keep you out, but to keep themselves safe. Then one day, I noticed a shift. It wasn't dramatic. No confession. No fireworks. Just small things. They lingered a little longer when saying goodbye. Their messages became softer. They asked how I was feeling instead of just saying they were busy. And once, just once, they let their guard down long enough for me to see the truth hiding behind their distance. Fear. Not fear of me. Fear of losing me. Fear of needing me. Fear of loving me. That's when I realized something most people never understand. When an avoidant person starts changing, even slightly, it means they're fighting their own instincts just to move closer to you. And that battle is harder than any romantic gesture. Most people walk away at this stage. They mistake hesitation for indifference. They mistake silence for lack of care. They think, if they loved me, it would be easy. But real love isn't always easy. Sometimes real love looks like someone trembling while reaching for your hand. Sometimes it looks like someone learning, slowly, painfully, how to stay instead of run. If you ever see that shift, that tiny softening in someone who once seemed emotionally distant, don't walk away. Because that shift is their heart whispering, "I'm trying." For you. And love, real love, is not about finding someone perfect at loving you. It's about recognizing when someone is learning how. So if they pause before saying, "I care about you," wait. If they struggle to open up, listen. If they step back sometimes, don't chase, but don't disappear either. Because the avoidant lover doesn't need someone louder. They need someone patient enough to hear what their silence is saying. And sometimes, the deepest love you will ever receive is hidden inside the quietest soul. Avoidant distance is often fear, not lack of love. People frequently misunderstand the quiet space an avoidant person creates, interpreting it as rejection, coldness, or emotional emptiness, when in reality it is often the opposite. Inside them lives a heart that feels intensely, but has learned, through past wounds, disappointments, or silent heartbreaks, that closeness can sometimes lead to pain. So instead of running toward love the way others might, they hesitate at the edge of it, like someone standing on a shoreline, longing for the ocean yet afraid of the depth. Their silence is not absence of feeling, it is the sound of emotions they have never learned how to safely express. When an avoidant person steps back, it is rarely because they do not care. More often, it is because they care so much that the feeling overwhelms them. Love, to them, is not just joy or excitement, it is exposure, vulnerability, and the risk of losing control over their guarded world. They may reply late, not because you are unimportant, but because they are carefully choosing words that won't reveal too much of their heart. They may seem calm when you expect passion, distant when you expect closeness, composed when you expect confession. Yet beneath that calm surface, emotions move like deep water currents, strong, powerful, and unseen. To love someone avoidant is to understand that their pace is not a measure of their affection. Their slowness is not hesitation about you, it is caution shaped by experiences that taught them love could disappear without warning. They might watch you carefully, observe your reactions, test your consistency, not as a game, but as reassurance that you are safe to trust. Every small step they take toward you is a quiet victory over the fear that once convinced them closeness was dangerous. Even their distance can be a sign of attachment, because they would not feel the need to retreat if your presence did not matter so deeply to them. Small emotional shifts from them are powerful signs of trust. With someone who has an avoidant attachment style, change rarely arrives as grand confessions or dramatic displays of affection. Instead, it appears in moments so subtle that most people overlook them. A slightly longer reply to your message. A question about your day that sounds genuinely curious. A pause before they leave, as if they're reluctant to step away. These are not random gestures, they are emotional risks, and for them, risk is never small. What looks ordinary from the outside can feel monumental inside their guarded heart. An avoidant person does not open up easily, because openness once came with consequences. Maybe they trusted someone who left, or depended on someone who disappointed them, or showed vulnerability and felt exposed instead of embraced. So they learned to protect themselves by controlling how much they reveal. They measure their words, regulate their tone, and keep their feelings folded neatly behind invisible walls. That is why even the smallest shift, like admitting they missed you, or sharing a personal thought without being asked, means more than 1,000 poetic promises from someone else. It means they are lowering their defenses, even if only for a moment. When they start letting you see fragments of their inner world, it is not accidental. It is intentional, though they may pretend it isn't. They might disguise affection as casual conversation or hide concern behind practical advice. They may sit a little closer than usual, or stay on the call a little longer than necessary, or remember details you mentioned weeks ago. These gestures are their way of saying, I trust you enough to let you see this part of me, even if the words never leave their lips. To recognize these shifts requires patience and attention, because avoidant love speaks softly. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or loud declarations. It reveals itself through consistency, through gradual warmth, through moments where their guard slips just enough for their sincerity to shine through. Each of those moments is a quiet confession, a sign that your presence is becoming a place where they feel safe enough to loosen the armor they once believed they could never remove. Patience is the language avoidant hearts understand best. Loving someone with an avoidant attachment style is not about chasing them, pressuring them, or demanding that they move faster than they are ready to move. It is about learning to sit calmly beside their silence without mistaking it for rejection, and learning to trust that their quiet does not mean they are drifting away. Where others might respond to distance with urgency, impatience, or frustration, what truly reaches an avoidant soul is steadiness, the gentle reassurance that they are not being rushed, judged, or cornered into emotions they are still learning how to express. An avoidant heart has spent years, sometimes a lifetime, convincing itself that independence is safer than dependence. They learn to rely on themselves because relying on others once felt unreliable or painful. So when love appears, it does not instantly erase that history. Instead, love challenges it. It invites them into unfamiliar emotional territory, where closeness feels warm but also unsettling. Patience becomes the bridge that allows them to cross that distance at their own pace. When they see that you are not pushing them, not demanding instant vulnerability, not punishing them for needing space, something inside them begins to soften. Patience tells them what words often cannot. It tells them you are safe. It tells them your care is not conditional. It tells them you are not here to control their feelings but to understand them. Every calm response you give instead of frustration, every gentle reassurance instead of accusation, every moment you allow them to gather their thoughts instead of forcing answers, becomes proof that closeness does not have to feel threatening. Slowly, they begin to unlearn the reflex that says love equals pressure. This kind of patience is not passive waiting, it is active understanding. It is noticing when they withdraw and responding with calm instead of panic. It is recognizing that their need for space is not a sign that they value you less, but a sign that they are trying to manage emotions that feel too large to handle all at once. It is choosing to remain emotionally steady so they can learn, through your consistency, that intimacy can exist without fear, that connection does not always demand immediate exposure, that someone can stay without insisting they change overnight. Real love means recognizing effort, not just expression. Many people are taught to measure love by visible signs, sweet words, constant attention, public affection, dramatic confessions, the kinds of gestures that are easy to notice and easy to understand. But when you love someone who struggles to express emotion openly, those traditional signs may not appear in the way you expect. If you only look for loud declarations, you might miss the quiet devotion standing right in front of you. Because for some hearts, love is not something they say fluently, it is something they practice carefully, step by step, like a language they are still learning how to speak. An avoidant person may not always say, "I love you," first, or often, or at all in the beginning. Yet they might show up when you need support, remember details about your life, or silently adjust their habits to make you more comfortable. These actions may seem small compared to poetic words, but for them they require courage. Effort, for someone who fears vulnerability, is not casual. It is intentional, sometimes even exhausting, because it means pushing against instincts that tell them to stay guarded. So when they choose to call instead of withdrawing, when they explain their feelings instead of hiding them, when they stay present instead of disappearing, they are offering something deeply meaningful, proof that you matter enough to challenge their own defenses. Recognizing effort means paying attention to progress rather than perfection. It means seeing the significance in moments others might overlook, the way their tone softens, the way they check on you unexpectedly, the way they hesitate before leaving as if part of them wants to stay. These gestures are not random, they are emotional risks disguised as ordinary behavior. When you acknowledge them, even silently, you validate their attempts to connect, and that validation becomes encouragement for them to keep opening up. Love that focuses only on expression can become demanding, because it expects feelings to be displayed in a certain way. But love that recognizes effort becomes understanding, because it values intention over performance. It sees the bravery in someone who is trying, even if they stumble, even if their words are imperfect, even if their affection arrives softly instead of loudly, even if their way of loving looks different from what the world usually celebrates. The quietest lovers sometimes love the deepest. They are not the ones who fill rooms with grand declarations or overwhelm you with constant reassurance. Instead, they exist like a steady flame, calm, controlled, and almost invisible unless you come close enough to feel the warmth. Many people overlook them because their love does not demand attention. It doesn't compete for the spotlight or try to prove itself loudly. It simply exists, steady and sincere, beneath layers of restraint. But silence should never be mistaken for emptiness, because some of the strongest emotions grow in the stillest hearts. A quiet lover often observes more than they speak. They notice the way your voice changes when you're tired, the way your eyes soften when you talk about something you love, the small habits you don't even realize you have. They store these details carefully, like precious letters folded and kept safe. While others might express affection through constant words, they express it through awareness. They remember things you forgot telling them. They sense your moods before you explain them. They stand beside you during moments when conversation isn't necessary, offering presence instead of performance. Their depth comes from the fact that they do not give their emotions easily. They guard their feelings until they are certain those feelings are real, stable, and worth revealing. So when they finally allow themselves to care, it is rarely shallow or temporary. It is layered, thoughtful, and enduring. What looks like hesitation is often careful sincerity, because they understand the weight of attachment and do not treat it lightly. They would rather love slowly and truthfully than quickly and superficially. Being loved by someone quiet means learning to hear what is never said aloud. It means recognizing affection in the way they stay, in the way they listen, in the way they choose you without announcing it to the world. Their love is not a performance meant for an audience, it is a private language spoken in glances, gestures, and moments of shared calm. It lives in what they do rather than what they declare, in what they protect rather than what they display, in the quiet devotion they carry within them every day.